Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. Whatever time it is we're watching, we're so happy you're here. I'm the Reverend Sheryl Butler, and this is Journey Road Ministries, where we seek to do justice, love kindness, and walk humbly. Well, today is the 10th week of Ordinary Time. So I want to send greetings from Troy, Illinois, where my youngest grandchild has just graduated from high school. So our gospel reading for today is from Matthew chapter 9, verses 9 to 13 and 18 through 26. As Jesus was walking along, he saw a man called Matthew sitting at the tax booth. And he said to him, "Follow me." And he got up and followed him. And as he sat at dinner in the house, many tax collectors and sinners came and were sitting with him and his disciples. When the Pharisees saw this, they said to his disciples, "Why does your teacher eat with tax collectors and sinners?" But when he heard this, he said, "Those who are well have no need of a physician, but those who are sick. Go and learn what this means. I desire mercy, not sacrifice, for I have come to call not the righteous, but sinners." While he was saying these things to them, suddenly a leader of the synagogue came in and knelt before him, saying, "My daughter has just died, but come and lay your hand on her, and she will live." And Jesus got up and followed him and his disciples. Then suddenly a woman who had been suffering from hemorrhages for 12 years came up behind him and touched the fringe of his cloak. For she said to herself, "If only I touch his cloak, I will be well." Jesus turned and seeing her said, "Take heart, daughter, your faith has made you well." And instantly the woman was made well. When Jesus came to the leaders of the house and saw the flute players in the crowd making a commotion, he said, "Go away, for the girl is not dead, but sleeping." And they laughed at him. But when the crowd had been put outside, he went in, took her by the hand, and the girl got up. And the report of this spread throughout the district. May the truth of these words be written upon our hearts and transform our lives. Today, I'd like to share a message from Reverend Jazzy Bostock, a proud Kanaka Maoli woman from Oahu. Now, you may be familiar with Brian Stevenson, the author of Just Mercy, which is now a movie, and if you're not the book reading type, tells people that what called him into his work was getting proximate. I highly recommend the book, or movie anyway. Stevenson works with prisoners who are on death row, work he was introduced to in graduate school. He describes being a student at Harvard and beginning work with a law firm, the Southern Center for Human Rights in Atlanta. His first assignment was to talk with a man on death row, simply informing him that there had been a stay of execution in the case, meaning that this man would not be killed at the date he had been given to him. Stevenson recounts that as he gave this news, what seemed to be a tiny piece of information, the man had tears in his eyes. He asked for Stevenson to repeat what he had just heard, to make sure his ears weren't deceiving him. Stevenson recounts that this encounter changed him. Prisoners on death row weren't prisoners anymore, not a faceless mass of criminals, but people. There were stories and names and faces and whole lives lived before the crime for which they had been convicted. Stevenson says that what changed him was this proximity. Getting proximate seems to be, if not a cure-all, a game-changing thing to do. When we are close to the other, however, that otherness manifests, we are changed by the relationship, changed by the encounter. We've all read stories about people changed by friendships. They have across lines of race or socioeconomics or geographical borders. The power of an individual story can't be denied when we are up close to it. From this lens, it's no wonder that Jesus chose to hang out with tax collectors and sinners. He got proximate. Our teacher shows us the way we are to live, to hang out with all kinds of folks, but most especially those who are on the margins of society, those who are judged and misunderstood and no good. Our teacher eats with them because it's on these margins that the gospel is most alive and that God is most needed. As Jesus puts it, those who are well have no need for a physician. So how do we do it? How do we get proximate to the heartache of the world? A lot of the time it's going to mean leaving our church pews. Often those who sit near us in church are somewhat like us. Perhaps they are bound to us by having kids the same age or by having similar career paths. With whom are you not usually in contact? Who's at the gas station in need of a hot meal? Or overwhelmed with childcare on Sunday morning? Who was out too late last night to wake up in time for service? Who's serving time in the nearest prison? These are the people with whom Jesus calls us into deeper relationship. From a place of relationship, we are transformed. We are made into the new creation that God wishes for us, changed into something more resembling true love. Jesus says that he desires mercy, not sacrifice. We cannot truly understand mercy without sacrificing our judgment, leaving self-righteousness behind in our walk of discipleship. Brian Stevenson says very simply that each of us is more than the worst thing we've ever done. He can say it not because he is delusional about human nature, not because he imagines us to be saints, because he knows us to be sinners. He has seen the humanity in those whom we have condemned to a life behind bars. He has seen himself in those who are called simply criminals. In this morning's gospel, when the Pharisees asked the disciples, "Why does your teacher eat with tax collectors and sinners?" they meant it to be shaming. They meant it to be embarrassing. They meant to say, "Why isn't he hanging out with us, the important people? If he's important, he should be paying mind to us." But Jesus stays true to his calling. He isn't swayed by the self-importance of the Pharisees. He isn't tempted into putting himself above anyone else. He knows that there is little difference between the Pharisees and the tax collectors. The only difference was one of ego. One group knew their need of God, the other didn't. Jesus says he comes to call not the righteous, but sinners. And the good news is that's us. Sin isn't confined to those who have broken the law or those who are different from us. We too are sinners. When we get proximate to those who are different from us, what falls away is judgment, allowing us to see how God is working in their lives. I wonder anew about how God might be working in our own. We are invited in the gospel to check our ego at the door, to get close to those about whom we have judgments, to remember that they and we are more than the worst things anyone has ever done. May it be so. Amen.
I love you, Lord, for your mercy never fails me. And all my days I've been held in your hands From the moment that I wake up until I lay my head, oh, I'm gonna sing of the goodness of God. All my life you have been faithful, and all my life you have been so good. With every breath that I am able, oh, I'm gonna sing of the goodness of God. I love your voice. You have led me through the fire and darkest nights. You are close like no other. I've known you as a father, I've known you as a friend, and I have lived in the goodness of God. All my life you have been faithful, and all my life you have been so good. With every breath that I am able, oh, I'm gonna sing of the goodness of God. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. With my life laid down, I'm surrendered now. I give you everything. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. All my life you have been faithful, and all my life you have been so good. With every breath that I am able, oh, I'm gonna sing of the goodness of God.